My name is Caleb. I live in Greenfield. I'm 17. Kind of just a little bit about me. I kind of transferred from public school into homeschool this year due to like school-wise and how I work and my brain and stuff. But I play for the Indianapolis Wildcats, based out of Greenwood. This is my first year actually being homeschooled, and I feel like it's been a little bit of a journey transitioning, but I felt like it's been pretty good. So kind of a little bit of what happened was I was at basketball practice, and I'm a Greenfield fire cadet for the fire department, and we had a cadet meeting that night, and I kind of forgot about it, and then didn't end up bringing my gear that I needed for the night, and kind of told my mom about it, and she had told my dad that, like, to call me and tell me that he'll bring it and stuff like that, and so I didn't think anything of it. I just kind of said okay and went on with the night, and then I left early from practice to get to the meeting on time, and my coach was okay with that, and so I was about 15 to 20 minutes from the exit, and my dad had called wondering like where I am and if I'm close to the exit so he can meet me at the fire station. And I had told him that I was about there, and then as he was on the phone with me, I tried getting into the right lane because I knew the exit was coming up, and it was on I-70, the interstate I-70, and a bunch of cars are on there all the time. Everybody's moving like 80 miles an hour or something like that, and I just happened to get around a semi that was in the right-handed lane, and I looked back, and like the entire interstate was like full, and I couldn't go maybe faster than 75-ish maybe, and because I have a lead foot and teenagers like to drive faster, but anyways, I kind of went around him to get into the exit, and I noticed that he was flashing me from like behind me because I had passed him, and I just didn't think anything of it. I thought he was like messing with me or something. And then I looked at my right-handed side, and I thought it was a turn signal, and it kept like flashing yellow, and it was underneath the hood, and I just thought my headlight was like coming through or breaking, I don't know. And I had smelled smoke like prior to seeing that flash, and so back to where my dad was calling, he kind of just was on the phone asking where I was and started talking about basketball. And I had told him that my brakes went out and I couldn't stop. And he had just, like, I guess he was more concerned about me trying to stop than anything else. And I tried to get over into the shoulder and noticed that my power steering had went out along with my brakes, and I couldn't get over, and I couldn't slow down. And so what I had done was put it out of drive and into neutral, well, as best as I could, so that I could slow down. And I tried like guiding it over to the rumble strips so that I could again slow down from moving 65 miles an hour. And by the time he had called and I told him everything that was going on with the car, the fire had moved into the cab and had been coming through the vents of the car, and I was trying to plan through my head about how I'm going to get out and how I'm going to basically survive. He had told me that I needed to put it into neutral, and then I had already done that, thinking that was the best way to slow down. And so after I had planned out what I was going to do, I tried like searching for the door handle on the side, and it's an older car, so you have to manually unlock it and like lock it whenever you're moving faster than 10 miles an hour. And so there was too much smoke in the cab, and I couldn't see, and I was coughing all over the place, and just praying that I could get out of the car. And all the while, I still had my dad on the phone, and he was probably freaking out. I couldn't hear anything. He was, I don't know. And
You were.
Yeah.
I think he had planned on trying to meet me, but I didn't hear any of that because I was too worried about getting out of the car rather than burning. I had prayed that God would get me out, and I just called out to him. I was just like, God, you got to get me out of this car. And as I said that prayer, my seatbelt had unclicked, and the car door unlocked. And I was able to find the door handle to open the door of the car. And I just braced myself to roll out of the car. At the speed that I was going was about 35, maybe 40 miles per hour. And I grabbed a hold of the wheel with my right hand, and I tried jerking the wheel as hard as I could so that it wouldn't run over me as I was jumping out of the car. And as I jumped out, I kind of just gave it a jerk, and what had happened was the car had turned and pivoted to like a right angle against the road, and which was kind of amazing actually, because if it would have gone straight, then it would have run over me, because I had been laying on the rumble strips and in the middle of the right hand lane, and so I couldn't feel my legs because of the impact on the ground, and I guess the adrenaline that was going through me, I guess. I didn't have any feeling in my legs, and my arms were kind of like weak from bracing on the ground. And then all of a sudden, this guy, well, keep in mind that the interstate was completely covered, and as I jumped out, I kind of looked back to make sure that no cars were coming, and I couldn't see cars for a couple miles, maybe more. The interstate had cleared up just prior to me jumping out of the car, and I was laying there trying to get over to the grass so that I wouldn't get hit, and a guy in a black pickup truck pulled over and made sure that I was okay and made sure that everybody else was out of the car. But I had told him that I was the only one in the car and coming out from basketball practice, and he was just like, okay. And so he picked me up out of the road, and I was able to walk back to his car perfectly fine after I couldn't really feel my legs and my arms were kind of weak. And at the time, I was just glad to get out of the road, and I didn't think anything of my legs. And so I kind of went over to his truck and caught my breath from all the smoke and ventilation and chemicals burning through the car. And I had found out that his name was Josh, and he had just gotten certified for search and rescue as a firefighter from the military. And since I'm a firefighter, I knew that you couldn't get certified to be a search and rescue person. You can get certified to be like a paramedic or an EMT or something like that, like firefighter wise, but there's no certification for search and rescue. And I guess God had put him in that position to like find me and rescue me in that position. He kind of talked to me about his life and kind of asked me where I lived, and I told him I live in Grayfield. And I kind of asked the same question, but he didn't tell me a specific spot. He just kind of said that he's been moving around a lot. And when I went home, I kind of thought to myself that he was an angel, basically, and angels don't really live in a certain spot. They kind of just needed to go. But as I was talking to him, the fire department, I saw them go by on the other side, and like 5 minutes after I would talk to him and stuff like that, they came up to me. Well, they parked and they went to go put the fire out, and there was like a wall of smoke, and the fire department and then us on the other side, and they had thought that I was still in the car, so I saw them run up to the car and like break the window and make sure everybody was out. And a couple minutes after all the incidents and everything had happened, they walked through the smoke and kind of just went over to me, making sure that I was okay, nothing was broken or stuff like that, and if I caught on fire and anything like that. Basic procedure of a firefighter. And I had told them that I was perfectly fine, and that my friend Josh picked me up and helped me to his car. And they just kind of said, okay, yeah, that's good. And then Josh was standing right beside me with his arms crossed, kind of nodding and saying that everything that I was saying was true. And so the firefighters started questioning me about where my dad was and where everybody else was, and I had told them that he was coming, and I had told him that Josh
They never talked
We
to
never
him.
talked
I had told him that Josh had never talked to me, or Josh had never talked to the fire department. They questioned me, but they never questioned Josh, and they never said anything to him. And I just kind of thought that was weird because he was standing right beside me, and you always ask the witness about what they saw and stuff like that. And so kind of went about 5 minutes, and my dad came up, and I went over to him.
You went back to the fire truck and filled out paperwork,
Yeah.
and Josh left you.
He went back to his truck after I went over to the fire department to get questioned and fill out insurance about the car and stuff like that. And about 5 minutes after that, he came back to me and told me that he had to leave and his time was up. And he patted me on the shoulder. Before I could turn around and shake his hand, he was gone, and I didn't see his truck, and I didn't see him. And the fire department never questioned me about it. I don't think they ever really saw him. I don't know. And then kind of got home after all that settled down, and got everything taken care of. And my dad had been praying a prayer over me because I had been struggling with like finding God and all this different stuff. And sorry.
Take your time, Josh. Thank you, Jim.
You've been struggling to find God's purpose for you.
That's my first time crying in front of people.
Quite all right. Quite all right.
Joshua 1:9 kill.
Anyways, the prayer that he'd been praying was Joshua 1:9, and the cool thing is, the guy that saved me was named Josh, and jeez,
in the scripture, Joshua 1:9 says,
Do not be afraid. The Lord your God will be with you everywhere that you go. And I got home, and my dad told me that. And my mom had been putting reminders on my phone that like God loves you and that we love you. And one of the reminders was that she had set the day before all this happened was I got home and it said that God has big plans for you. And that went off right when I stepped foot into the door. And that's a sign that basically that he's not done with me. And I have a purpose in life, so that's kind of my story about what happened to me on November 21st, 2019.
Thank you for sharing that.